What's up everybody, welcome to Balkan Moto. Today we're going to start making the seat. Let's check it out. Alright, picking up where we left off last time, I took all the parts that I fabricated and I've spray painted them gloss black with one of these. Not that it matters, but so yeah, this should keep them from rusting and hopefully give them a little bit more protection. The seat pan, I didn't have to spray just because it's going to be entirely encased in leather. But I wanted to, just in case some moisture ends up leaking through the leather and making this thing rust. So now it's all nice and shiny and black, which no one's ever going to see. The electronics pan, that's nice and gloss black. That should look a lot cleaner on the bike. And then we have all the other bracketry, which again, nicely black and perfect. The other thing that I did do is I did spray some of the parts on the bike itself. So the frames where I cut them are now gloss black, matching the rest of the frame. There was a little bit of rust and chipping right here, so I ended up spraying that area as well. So that's nicely cleaned up. And if you remember, there was some scuff marks down here, which I've also sprayed with some black paint just to kind of cover those up as well, to make sure that nothing's gonna go wrong there either. So the bike's all figured out. So let's see what the plan is for the seat. We're down in the leather shop and we brought the seat pan with us as well as the template. In terms of the seat that we're going to be making, the inspiration behind it was the Bobber Brothers Gringo seat, I believe is what the motto is. I'll put a picture up here somewhere of what that looks like. Essentially, it's a bobber seat that has mostly brown leather all around with two panels of black leather in the middle and an engraving at the back. So we're going to kind of mimic that in a way. So you can see here on the template, I've kind of traced out some of the panels that we're going to need. So the Gringo, the Bubba Brothers template actually had the black leather pieces kind of curved around like here, which when I templated over this, it does give me a bigger space to do the engraving for my logo. But this is also kind of the primary sitting area, and I'm not sure I want to be sitting on the logo itself. I think I want to move that a bit further back, so here. And instead, what I'll probably do is make these panels kind of go like this instead. So they're kind of a nice big lung shape, almost, or upside down lung if you look at it this way. And then the rest would be like so. The panels here are going to be black, so like this. We're going to dye the leather black, and then we're going to do silver stitching. So 3 lines of silver stitching across, kind of symmetrically spaced out. And then the top panel that's kind of all around is going to be show brown. So this is kind of the color of that. And you can kind of see, if it's not shining too much, the color difference here. So this will be essentially on top. There's going to be stitching kind of going all around with black thread. And then same around this one. And then around the edge to connect the top panel to a panel that I'm also going to build from the bottom as well. That kind of will wrap the entire thing, the entire seat pan from the bottom side. We're going to glue it on essentially. We're going to do a double stitch line all around, glued, and then we're going to finish the edges, and that will be the seat, or at least the leather component of it. Now in terms of cushion, you guys have already seen the gel insert that I got, so we're definitely going to use that. And in terms of dimensions, you can see that kind of covers most of it already. Now what I do plan on doing with the rest of the space, so that it's not just gaps of like nothing, we're gonna end up using this old foam padding that was used for carpet in my house. So I kept some of it, and it actually ends up being just enough, there's enough resistance in it that when you stack it up, it's almost identical. Like in terms of 2 layers of it are kind of the same height as the gel insert. So and they're slightly softer than that. Now, given that I'm not actually sitting on it, what I plan on doing is I'm going to make a cutout that would fit essentially all the way around this. So kind of filling in all the gaps, double layered. And then this kind of just plops right in the middle of it. And then do one more full layer that covers the whole thing. Just a little bit extra padding. And then all of that will be covered by the leather that we have on top. So kind of sealing it all in, essentially making it, well, let's use this piece. If that's the top layer, and we have the leather, it's about as thick as this cardboard. We're looking at a seat that's about this thick. And that combined with the springs and the suspension on the bike should make for a very, very plush ride. So to begin, let's start bottom up and making the panel that's going to go essentially be glued at the bottom, and making the holes for it so that it all lines up. And from there, we're going to, once that's set up and ready, we're then going to cut the matching panel that's for the top, measure out the lung patches, and get those cut out. Cut the holes in the top so that the lung patches can be sewn on. And then we're going to hole punch everything so that it's ready for stitching. And before we dye it, we're going to engrave the Balkan Moto Leathercraft logo in the top part of the top piece. And after that is all dyeing and assembly. The panel is cut out, and I've kind of temporarily attached it to the seat pan, just so I can measure out more evenly how much to cut it. So I'm going to be gluing it to it, and essentially that leaves me this, you know, what is that? Almost 2 centimeter gap to do the 2 stitch lines, and then finish off the edge for the final seat. But that's roughly the size of the seat that we're going to be making. Here's the 2 lung-shaped inserts. I don't know if you guys can see that, but I've marked them up for the lines that will need to be stitched. So there's going to be 3 lines running across. And I've also made this 1 centimeter border all around. So this essentially will be the part that glues it under to the underside of the top cover. And this is where we're going to stitch it to as well. So essentially this is kind of like what the surface area that we're going to be seeing on top is like. So that amount. The rest will be glued to the underside of the and stitched. Pieces are all hole punched for the stitching down the middle, and they're waiting for dyeing. So onto the pile of done. Let's make the big piece and cut out the holes in it. Here's how the top piece will look. Obviously right now it's way oversized, but we will shape it and get it to fit more properly later on. For now, I'm going to just finish off some of these edges here, and then I'm going to get a stenciled version of the logo. So the Leathercraft logo will be on the back here, like so. I mean, I'll carve it in. It won't be on a piece of leather like that. And once we have that, then we'll go ahead and dye all the pieces in the color that they need to be. This top piece is going to be a dark brown. These pieces are going to be black. The bottom piece will also be black. And then we're going to start to figure out how to assemble it. I traced the Balkan Moto Leathercraft logo onto here. I don't know if this is coming out on the camera. But now we're gonna wet the surface, and we're actually gonna use the carving knife to carve it all out. And then some of the other tools to kind of add a little more texture to it, so that it's a little nicer. And at that point, this piece, in terms of cutting and stuff, is more or less ready for dyeing. So the first carving with the carving knife looks like. Now let's use the additional tools to add some beveling to this. Alright, and here's the final carved version. Still a little wet, so we'll let that fully dry. In the meantime, I'm gonna touch up the edges on the two holes, and also I think on this, there's nothing to do on this. These, I could touch up the edges a little bit just so it's not as rough, but other than that, these two are ready for dyeing. This needs to dry and then I'll dye it. I also need to make the leather washers that are going to fit inside of the spring below this washer, so that it doesn't scratch it, as well as at the bottom where the spring will go on top of this guy. So need to make 4 leather washers. We have the bottom piece, the 2 long pieces, and the washers that we're going to need for the springs. So these ones are going to be inside the spring, and these are going to be on the bottom. So let's dye all of this black with the Phoebing's Pro Dye Black. Coat of black dye is on. Parts are looking pretty snazzy. I'm going to wait for them to dry for a bit, and then I'm going to do another coat just to make sure that they're nice deep black. And then leave them to dry overnight. And tomorrow we're going to finish them off with some, what's that stuff called? The leather balm with atomic wax, atom wax. And that'll give them a nice shine and make them look like a nice glossy black. But while that's drying and waiting for its second coat, let's... this one's still drying, it's still wet, so this can't be dyed yet. Let's take a look at this and how we're gonna fill in the extra space with this flooring foam. I cut out 3 templates of the foam, and the plan is to trace out the gel piece onto 2 of them, such that it will create this big hole in the middle. So when I put it on here, I can put these things around it and fill it up so it levels with the foam. And then the third one we're going to put on top. And that will be the total setup for the cushioning on the seat. And then after that, we just need the leather to wrap it and press it all around so it nicely forms. But that, I believe, should be plenty of cushion, along with the springs and the suspension on the motorcycle. Alright, and this is kind of the idea. So the foam, or the gel insert, will sit in the middle. We have this foam kind of going all the way around it, filling in the rest of the seat pan. And then we're going to have the top piece on top. So very much like a cake. But yeah, that will create this nice little cushioned lip on the back, as well as kind of keep everything nice, and we have plenty of cushion to go around. And these things will get nicely pressed down as I fold the leather over them to glue and sew it together. So before we turn our attention back to the leather itself, we'll start gluing some of this stuff on here. And firstly, we're gonna get this guy stuck on there. I think if I just peel the plastic off of it, it's quite sticky, so it will pretty much just stick in place. And then from that point on, we can Gorilla Glue this to the rest of it, and then glue the one on top of it, and finally glue the final piece on top of it. Alright, and the top layer is now dry and ready for dye. For this one, we're going to use Phoebing's Show Brown, which would nicely contrast the black. I already gave these guys a second coat of black, so they're just waiting to dry off completely, and then we're going to polish them nicely. So let's get some brown on this. Alright, and the top layer is also dyed. I think I might just do another coat on it. Like, this is still drying a little bit, but I can see that I put a little bit more dye here than I did everywhere else, so I might just change that. This is kind of how it would look like with these panels here. In terms of the black panels, they're actually all done. They're nice and black. Same with the bottom, so these I'll just polish up. Same with the 4 washers, and then we can start stitching them up. After a little bit of deliberating, I think what I'm going to do is it's going to be black stitching everywhere. So these will have black stitching here, then around the holes we're going to have black stitching, and 2 lines of black stitching around the perimeter. So let's run another coat of dye on this to get it a more even brown, and start polishing up these pieces. Alright, these pieces of leather are all finished, so you can see they're kind of way shinier than they were before, and they actually look super black, so that's nice. Next, let's stitch these lines up with black thread, and after that we're going to be gluing this to the bottom of the seat pan, which right now is kind of being stacked with all the foam, just so it actually glues in place. And then we're going to glue this to the bottom of it, so that we can, once the top piece is assembled, we can all clamp it all down. Alright, I've stitched the 3 lines on the long pieces, so that's what they look like. Now the top piece is still drying. Looks a lot better with the second coat. It's much more even of a brown. I still need to wait for it to dry so I can do the polish on this as well, the atom wax. So we'll deal with that tomorrow, and then once that's done, we're gonna glue the long pieces on the bottom side, and then hole punch them so we can stitch them. The top piece is now fully dried. I just went ahead and hole punched it for stitching with the long pieces. Same with the long pieces themselves. Hole punched them all around. They're all nicely stitched now down the center with black thread. The actual seat, the bottom layer has been glued to the seat pan, so that's all good. I'll need to trim this foam a little bit to get it to kind of clear up the space here, so that we can put the other layer on top and glue it on, and then stitch them together, trim it. Right now this piece is purposely made this big just because I don't know exactly how much I'll need, but as you can see, once we put it on and kind of line it up, let's say go about here. Let's say line it up like that. Like on the back, we have almost like a lot extra. On the front, same thing. So there's quite a bit of material here to work with to fold it over and press it nicely on there. But yeah, next let's finish this off with some atom wax, and then glue these pieces on and stitch them, and then we're going to take a look at how we're going to attach the top and the bottom. Here's the top layer now finished and glossy, so this is kind of like what the look of the whole seat will be from the top. We have the black inserts, long pieces We're going to stitch them with black all around. We're going to also glue them so these holes are not opening up. And then we're going to figure out how to stick it on top of that and stitch everything together. Alright, after 2 grueling hours of stitching the misaligned holes on this, finally got the 2 lung patches on the main piece, and it's looking really good. So now what we're going to do is I'm going to apply some contact cement on both the bottom and the top piece, and I'm going to line it up with the back side so that we can glue this down there all around like so. Then we're going to trim it. And after gluing and trimming some of the excess, this is what the seat looks like. I think pretty nice. Alright, and the seat is finally done. I'm gonna save you the footage of me stitching for 4 hours. These 2 lines on the outside took forever to do. Here's what it looks like. It's a bit heavy because obviously it has that metal plate in it, but I expect it to be quite comfortable. So now that that's done, let's put all this back on the bike, see how it looks, and test it. All right, and here's the electronics pan and the main bracket on there, nice and clean and black. We have the leather washers on here that the springs are going to go on. And the seat, we have the main bracket loosely put on there, the springs are on. And we just need to put on the axle bolt and assemble things. Let's get that on there, line it up, and go for a ride. Alright, and here it is fully assembled. I mean, I still don't have the covers on, but that's what it looks like. I think for a DIY, this actually turned out pretty great. So let's take it for a ride. The bobber seat is done, so we're in good shape. Next on the list is the brake lights, so that we can get this bike back into a road legal condition. So we're going to be setting up the integrated brake lights and turn signals, as well as we still need to make a license plate bracket, so that we can have everything on the back sorted back out. And then we're going to turn our attention to the motor. So make sure to subscribe, hit the little bell for notifications when new videos become available. Check me out on Instagram at Balkan Moto 2018, and check out balkanmoto.com. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.